Hello, I'm Mrs. M from the Children's Library at Upper Darby Library, Sellers Branch. Thank you for joining me today and welcome to Craft Club. Today we're making a quilled paper tube snowflake. This is what it looks like. Each one will be a little bit different because, as you can see, we're using colored paper, so it will depend on the design of the colors that you use. But this gives you an idea of what it will look like when you're finished. If you haven't already picked up your kit at the library, please stop by Sellers Library and get a kit for it. In the kit you will find a sheet of cardstock to use as the backer, and you're going to keep that flat on your surface that you're working on, your table or your desk. You'll also get 2 small paper tubes. You'll need 2 to do the snowflake. If you happen to have a longer tube from a roll of paper towels, you'll only need the one of those. You'll also get a number of sheets of different colors of paper, and I'll show you in a minute how we use those. In addition to that, you're going to need to use your scissors. You'll need some white glue. Now for this craft, I recommend that you use white glue. The glue sticks don't work too well for this because it's a little bit messy, but it takes quite a bit of glue to do this. You'll also need a plate, or I'm using a paper plate, but you can check with your parents. If they prefer you to use a regular plate, then you can just wash it when you're done. If you use a paper plate, when you're done, you can just throw it away. You'll also need a round pencil, or you can use a straw instead. Either one will work. Okay, so those are the supplies that you're going to need, and let's get started now, and I'll show you how to do the steps of the project. Okay, so the first step is to put your backer sheet flat on your table or your desk where you're working. Now when you're finished gluing this project together, you're going to want it to dry completely before you pick it up so that it doesn't fall apart. Okay, so our next step then is to take our rolls, and our first step is to flatten each roll just with your hands, just like this. Just as flat as you can do it, like that, and like that. Just use a little bit of pressure with your hands and flatten the rolls. Then we're going to cut them into strips, and it doesn't matter too much exactly how wide your strips are. You want to make them as close to even as you can, but if they're not quite even, it doesn't matter. It will add a little bit more texture to your craft. So I'm doing them about 3/4 of an inch wide, like that. And you just cut up both of your paper rolls like that. And you're going to end up then, let me put this aside, and I cut some of these earlier, you're going to end up with a pile of your strips. And your next step then is to put this into your pattern, and you want to do this pattern before you start to glue it down to make sure that it's the way you want it. So for your snowflake, you're going to want your 6 spikes, so I'm going to put them in place like this. When you pick up your strip, you'll notice that it sort of turns into a pod. So that's why it looks like this. Let's see. So we need 6 of those. So you arrange this however you like it to make your snowflake pattern. And then if you want, you'll notice that in the finished one that I have here, I added a little embellishment here in between the pods. And if you'd like to do that, all you do is take one of your strips and just fold it in half, just like that. Okay, and then put it between 2 of the pods. Okay, and I'll do the same thing with another one. And the same with the 3rd one of these. And again, if you don't like that extra step, you don't need to do it. All you really need to do to make your snowflake are your 6 pods. Okay, so I have my pattern here, and now our next step. So now we're going to have glue. We want a good amount of glue on our plate. So I've gotten a good amount here, and you can see you need a good amount because it gets a little messy, but it takes a good amount of glue to make this stick. So our first step then is to take one of our pods and we're going to be gluing the edges. So we're going to put the edge down into the glue like this a couple times, make sure it has plenty of glue on it, and then put it in place. Press it down, not so hard that you crush it, but press it into place. Okay, and then we do that with each one of them. And don't worry if you can see the glue when you first put it on your backer sheet. Once it dries, you won't be able to see that glue. Okay, so I'm just going to go around now and do that with each one of them. As you can see, I'm dipping it several times so I get plenty of glue on it. I'm going to put this in place. And one more pod. And then I have the little decorations to glue down as well. Take one of those out. And again, we're going to glue the edge. Put that in the glue. Try and get that big amount of glue off of there. Okay, like that. And do it again for this one. And one more yet to glue it down. Oops. My pod came up, so again I'm going to add a little bit more glue and put it back in place. Like I said, don't worry if you can see the glue on the backer sheet right now because it will dry clear. That's why we use the white glue to do this. And in between. Okay. So we have it glued in place, and we're going to make sure that we have it totally dry before we pick it up. So now I'll move my glue out of the way. And our next step is to do our quilling. And for that, quilling is actually an art form where you're using rolls of paper and glue to make a decorative design. So your first step is to cut your paper into strips. And again, don't worry too much if they're not all exactly the same width. But I'm going to try to make mine about 3/4 of an inch. But again, if they're not, that's fine. The depth will add a little bit of texture to your snowflake. And you'll end up, you're going to do that with your different colors of paper, whatever colors you want to use, and you'll end up with a set of strips in your different colors. And then we're going to start to do our quilling. And for that, you take a strip of paper and take your round pencil, and we're going to wind it around the pencil. So I'm starting with it behind the pencil and holding it in place. And then you wind the whole strip of paper onto the pencil. And don't worry if it comes loose and comes off the pencil while you're doing it, just start over. Doesn't hurt anything. Okay, so now I have it wound around the pencil. I'm going to slide it off and hold on to it while you do it so it doesn't come apart at this point. And now I'm going to hold this, and I'm going to, again, I'm going to glue down the edge of it. So I'm going to put that glue into the edge of the roll of paper into the glue, and then I'm going to put it inside one of the pods. Put it down, and you can see that it starts to unroll a little bit, but that's the way it's supposed to do it. Okay, so don't worry about that. So then our next step is to pick, I'm going to pick different colors. You can do yours however you would like. So I'm going to do another one and roll it around like this. And you can see what I'm doing. I'm actually rolling the pencil to help roll up the paper. Makes it easier. Okay, and then take it off. Hold it in place. Stick this in the glue. And I'm going to put this in here beside the red one. And again, it's starting to unroll a little bit. And then I'll do another one here. Let's see, I'm going to pick a yellow one, I think, just to go with the red and the blue. But again, it doesn't matter what colors you use. It's whatever you like. Okay, again, I'm going to hold this in my glue, put this down in here beside it, and you can see how it started to unroll a little bit too, but you end up with your 3 colors in there. Now, if you happen to use a smaller pencil, smaller or round, it will make a tighter quill. If you use something that's bigger or round, like this straw is a little bit bigger, it would make a looser quill. They're all fine. However you like it is fine. And you're going to do that with all 6 of your pods and fill them up with your quills the way this one is done. And when you're done filling all 6 of your pods, you're finished with your craft. And then, like I said earlier, let it dry completely before you try to pick it up so it doesn't come off of the sheet. Okay. I hope you have fun making your quilled paper tube snowflake, and thank you so much for joining me for Craft Club today.